Well, hello to you once again. Thanks very much for being here to the Through It podcast. You got Holly and Paul here with you. Remember, anytime you need us, podcastthroughit at gmail.com. Today, we're flipping around a little bit here today. We are, instead of talking to actual people that have gone through it, we're talking to a grief counselor who helps people get through it. So welcome, Nancy Boyd. You just gave us your credentials, and I'm just going to say 2-time master degrees with all sorts of schooling. So you are the legit deal. That's all I know for sure. So Nancy, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
So how long have you been in grief? Now, grief counseling, is that the main focus?
Yeah, grief and trauma work I've been doing for probably about 35 years in one way or another now. I've been doing it in practice, in a group practice. I've been doing it prior to that. I was actually working with sexual assault victims.
Wow.
Yeah, I did that as a volunteer. After that, I did it in a group practice where I was director of loss and life transitions, specializing in child loss. And then I worked, currently actually I'm working for a hospice where I work with death and dying with patients and families. So in one way or another, I've worked with loss and trauma. I also worked with first responders for years as a volunteer in the community, helping people who deal with trauma. So it's pretty much been most of my entire adult life that I felt that I wanted to work in that area.
Wow. That's quite a wide spectrum. I think that, especially with the first responders, that's great. But I gotta ask, why? This has got to be a draining. This has got to be draining. Why this line of work? I mean,
Well,
why this specialty? I guess.
Yeah, and that's pretty much a logical question that people would ask. It's not a kind of a job choice that a lot of people would say, gee, I'd really like to do that as a job. So it's really more of I would say, a calling, a spiritual calling for me. My going back to my own childhood, my sister was born at birth. She died actually at birth when I was 10 years old. And I think that that was a really influencing factor for me because I was so looking forward to her being born. And for years that affected me, even though I didn't realize it. She was born in July. When I was 10 years old, she was born and died in July. And I realized how that affected me many years later. So that was really an influencing factor for me. And then when I was a young wife, I had a miscarriage. And that was also an influencing factor because it was not recognized as a loss. So having gone through those losses, I think I started to realize how alone people often are in going through losses, no matter what they are, but particularly certain kinds of losses. And then I kind of broadened that to traumatic loss. And then I incorporated caregivers, people who go into those situations and take care of people who are going through traumas and losses and wanted to help them, like police and firefighters, first responders, and continue to do some of that now.
Okay. Now you mentioned a miscarriage and that sort of thing, and it was always until I got to be an adult. It's it happens. It happens to so many people, and I guess that's the thing that's people have been told, but it could happen to many people, but it still stinks. It's the worst. It's, and I'm not even a woman, but I know it absolutely
Right.
stinks. So when did you notice that things like that started to change? Like
Mm,
because I feel like it's not being dismissed anymore. You know what I'm saying?
right. Well, you're right. I think it's gotten better, definitely gotten better from the time that it happened to me. The only person who was really there for me back then was my mom. Other people, actually, way back then, even my husband, and it wasn't his fault. I think people just didn't educate people very well about
Yeah.
what this was about or what it was like. It was just considered, oh, you could have another child.
Yeah.
Uh, you can just have another baby. You're young, you can have another baby. Um, so it was not really considered to be very significant. And so it was, I think for a young woman, I was a young woman, it was a very isolating, lonely experience. So, I think in life, you can take these experiences and use them and remember them and then take them and use them to help other people, which is what I did.
It's good.
Yeah.
Past couple of interviews, Holly and I have had those on who have had trouble getting pregnant, have had miscarriages, even had someone who lost a child in an accident, things of the nature. Um, I guess there's a lot of layers there, of course, but I guess one of the big things that seems to pop up is guilt.
Mhm.
And there's usually, how do I say this? It's not, it's those sort of things are not necessarily anyone's fault, per se, but there's a lot of guilt that comes on that. So how
Mhm.
do you help someone who loses a child, whether it's the in vitro is not working or whether it's something with birth? How do you even get that in their head that this not necessarily
Mhm.
your fault?
Right. Well, you can't take away whatever somebody's feeling. I mean, I think my role as a human being and then as a therapist is to really listen to the story that that person's carrying, listen to what they're carrying, as long as it takes. So my role is to walk with them. It isn't to try and take away what it is they're feeling because there's something there for them that's underneath that feeling of guilt. Um, what is it that they're carrying? And why is it they're carrying that feeling of guilt? So, however long it takes, it's really my role, my job to walk with them to figure out what is it that's bringing that on for them. Because the last thing, the thing it's society tends to do, we don't realize it, but we want to take away those feelings that somebody's having. We want to make it better. That's the worst thing we can do. Whatever it is it guilt? Is it pain? Is it, suffering? We don't want to do that. Whatever that person is feeling, we just want to, the hardest thing to do is just be still, to be quiet and walk with them, to just stick with them.
So you're saying a big dumb guy like me that wants to fix everything, that's not always the case. That's not always how it works.
You're not a big dumb guy to begin with, but you have a nice you have a nice presence about you. So if you can just, the hardest thing to do is to simply be present. That is very difficult to do. To just simply be still and to be present is so difficult to do, and to not try to fix somebody, to not interject something, to not say something, to just simply be there with somebody is very painful to do when
Well, I think,
somebody's suffering.
yeah, people don't know what to say, and they want to offer some sort of support. And I've had people say things that a lot of people would be offended by, but I know they don't know what to
Right.
say. So they're saying like, well, everything happens for a reason, or,
Oh,
I know some people have been told at least you have other children, or, they're in a better place. And
oh,
when you're a parent,
that just makes me cringe when I hear you say that, you
yeah,
know.
yeah,
And I know that you're saying they mean well, but I really, really wish they would learn not to say those things.
yeah,
Or even if they have, say religious beliefs,
yes.
I wish they would not say those things, Holly. I wish they would just learn to be with you.
Yes, that the emotional support and just having people surround you and support you is
Mhm.
I know that was certainly helpful for me. And people just checking in is
Yes.
is helpful. And um yeah, it's it definitely is difficult for people, I think, to just sit and be with you. But I think that's great advice.
Yeah, and they're willing to carry your pain,
Yes.
to sit with you and to say, "Can I sit with you right now?"
Yeah. No, I think that's powerful. And I was lucky to have people do that with me. So and for the most part, people I found with Tristan's loss, I were better, I guess, with what they said to me than when they found out Haley had cancer, and Tristan had his heart defect. Some of the stuff people said to me, I infuriated me.
Well,
But
you had every right, I'm sure, at times, because people can't tolerate, especially a child illness or child loss. It's too scary to them,
yes,
especially if they have children.
yes, yeah.
It
And I
scares them to death.
it does. And I learned that with responses, and over the years, that's exactly what it was, is that it's every parent's worst nightmare, be
Hmm.
it a miscarriage or going through, the whole birthing process full term, and losing them as an infant, or, losing your child at any phase of your life.
Right.
So, yeah.
In a weird kind of way, it's very primitive. It's almost superstitious on some level to be around a parent whose child has died or whose child is very ill. On some level for other parents, it's very frightening to them.
Yeah, they're uncomfortable. Yeah, people don't know how to respond. They're afraid
Hmm.
that they're going to upset you. And we talked with Christy on our the episode hasn't launched yet, and her strong feeling since she's lost her son is talk about them. They lived. We want to hear that you have memories with them. And
Right.
I know for me that's healing. It makes me smile. But I can see with certain individuals, when I bring his name up and share a story, particularly men, they seem to squirm a little bit,
Yes.
because they don't want to get emotional, and they don't want to, upset you. And I know, Paul, we talked about it, and you had said initially when we started this journey together that it made you uncomfortable too. You weren't wanting to upset me and
Oh, 100%. Yeah. I mean, I almost wish we had Nancy on 20 some episodes ago because, you know, I have learned a lot and I was when we had talked about when we wanted to get this thing going. Oh boy, that I thought, okay, I'm not sure what I'm even going to say, but, talking to other people, talking to you, and Nancy throwing out some stuff. It's not as scary, and you said it the best. I did not want to upset you. I will do much or as little as you need and
Right.
stuff, but I didn't want to upset you, and that
Yeah,
was my big
especially,
thing. But it almost seems like since we had the Tristan episode, we've had other people talking, that it almost seems, is the therapeutic the right word? I mean, or does it help at least?
for me it does because
Okay.
Mhm.
you want his memory to live on. One of my good girlfriends speaks about Tristan in present when she references her son because our boys were the same age, and I don't know, makes me
Right.
happy, because
Right.
I feel that, and Nancy and I talked about this yesterday, that energy doesn't die.
Right.
Everything that I've researched religiously, spiritually,
Yes.
scientifically, everything
Hmm.
says that the energy doesn't die. So I
Right.
feel that those of us that have suffered loss, be it a child or parents, grandparents, cousins, siblings, um, they're amongst us still, just in different form.
Right. He's with you.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
that's such an important point, that he is always present with you.
Yep. In fact, I had a hummingbird, Paul. I think I told you this last week, maybe.
Yeah.
That hummingbird came up again. I was sitting on the deck today, and I got pictures of him today. So
Oh, you have
uh,
to send me a copy
I
of it.
I will. Yeah. I sent him to my family this morning because this hummingbird's been coming around since he
Oh,
passed. So I feel
that's
like it's a little sign.
that's beautiful.
And I was happy I finally got him on camera because he generally hangs out a little bit with me. So I
Send
got
me
him today.
send me a copy of it.
I will for
That's
sure.
beautiful.
Yeah.
So
So,
that's an important point, is to not even necessarily talk about that person, about that child, as if they're somewhere else. But
mhm.
how are they with you in your life now? And how do other people incorporate that child into your life too
Yeah.
now?
Yep. Yep. It's I feel like I've been blessed, and people will share with me if they've had dreams about him, or
Mhm.
my sister-in-law, her kids, they were on a trip, and they had met, their son was playing with a little boy named Tristan. And
Oh,
then their daughter had met a little gal, um, with the same name of a friend of hers that had just passed away a year ago. And I was like, and so I felt so blessed that they reached out to share that the kids were having that experience. And I was like, oh, it's funny just how the universe works sometimes with
yes.
that stuff.
That's so important.
Yeah. Yeah. Nancy, for parents, for anybody grieving, really, um, do you feel that there's really a thing such as the stages of grief?
No,
No.
I don't. I think Elizabeth Kubler-Ross was a pioneer. And like any pioneer during her time, she brought the subject of grief to everybody's attention in an important way. But it's a very structured way of looking at grief that doesn't really fit anymore. I think that grief is something that it lasts throughout our lifetime.
Hmm.
It isn't structured.
Yeah.
It's just always going to be part of who we are. And it can come up at very different times.
Yep.
For example, my dad died, I think it's been about 6 years ago, and I can have just all of a sudden have this sort of acute feeling of missing him. Now, I never used to text my dad. He was in his 90s, but I had a feeling I wanted to talk to him. So I sent him a text. I said, Dad, I really miss you. Call me.
Ah,
So it was such an acute feeling of missing him, something about him. So it doesn't happen all the time with people I love, but I'm sure that you have feelings at times or emotions or can be in your body that you have this sense,
Mhm.
this acute sense of missing Tristan, right?
Yep. Yeah, it's changed over the last 3 years, um, in different ways. I feel like I can smile more now, and
Mm-hmm.
I don't necessarily cry as
Mm-hmm.
Ellen, did we
funny
lose you?
stuff
There
that
she
he
is.
did, and when people. Oh, did you lose me for a second,
Yeah,
Yeah,
or
just
did
just
for
for
I
a
a second.
freeze?
second. Yeah.
um, but yeah, I mean it's changed. I mean it's still pretty heavy, and it's only been 3 years, but it's changed, and I at times I I can talk very matter of factly about what happened,
Right,
and
right,
everything, and I'm very sciencey about it, and this is what went down, and then other times
right,
I'm a hot
right.
mess.
And that's how I think how grief works. I think
Mhm.
that we have protective mechanisms. We
Yeah.
have to in order to function. Otherwise, we would just be overwhelmed all the time.
Yeah.
Uh, but other times we may not be overwhelmed, but we can still, I think, particularly parents, particularly mothers, when we think that we gave birth to that child, that we can have almost a physical feeling, not particularly of being overwhelmed, but a physical feeling of missing that
Mhm.
child.
Yeah.
And it can come up, at times.
Oh yeah. And then other times I'm at peace, and I kind of feel his presence, and you just kind of, I don't know. You feel that you're okay with the universe, and because you know that they're there. So it's weird. It's like you said,
Right.
it doesn't come like, okay, it happens, and then this is how you feel, and then you move on to how this feels. It's kind of, you feel a little nutty at times, because it's like you said, it's like all,
It's
you don't know it. You think you're okay 1 second, and
and
then
that's why grief isn't, I believe it's not linear, the
Mhm.
way Elizabeth Kubler-Ross tried to create stages. I mean, I think she was great and she was a pioneer and she gave us a way to sort of create a construct, a way to look at it. And that's good.
Yeah, to at least understand what it might not be step 3, but to
Right,
at least
right,
understand what you're feeling. That's
right.
that's normal. That's part of it. It just may not
Exactly.
happen it might not happen at step 1. It might happen at, you know,
Exactly.
yeah, it's all, and then it might come back and happen again.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
So,
So she gave us some good ways to notice things in ourselves.
yeah, it's good. Yeah, I mean, understanding grief and the different emotions that come with it have helped me know that I'm not crazy, and this is
Right.
normal.
Well, grief is pretty crazy making at times,
Mhm.
right? As you said, I mean, you can feel one extreme to another, maybe not so much anymore.
Well, and it doesn't just affect your mind. There's
No,
physiological things that
exactly.
happen, not even just with grief, but like stress, like the
Yes.
stuff that can happen to you physically.
Oh, yeah.
Um, like I know with me, migraines, stress is a trigger for me.
Yes.
Um, nausea.
Yeah.
With everything with Tristan, I was vomiting. Um,
Oh,
Hair loss, I've had that. I've had like my palms would start to peel, like
oh,
just weird, um,
right.
weird panic. I don't know if I mentioned panic attacks. I've had
Yeah.
those, which are scary if you don't know what those are. So it's muscle tightness,
Yeah.
sleeplessness. I mean, there's so many different things. I don't know what else I'm missing, but I feel like I've
No, but you
experienced a lot
you
of
have
them.
such a gift at being able to share all that with other people because I think in the grief literature there isn't enough maybe written about the physiological ways that it can really affect people, especially I think child loss.
Yes. Yeah.
It makes sense.
No, it does. It's your your brain is a powerful organ, and
Yes.
the way that um just different types of emotions can physically affect you
Yes.
is crazy. Even good, like when you're happy, like
Right.
how that can affect you
Exactly.
physically. Sunshine,
Yeah.
I mean, sunshine affects for me like how I feel, and it's a good,
Yes.
it's a good feeling, and I'm in a better mood. So there's
And you're
there's a
probably very sensitive to your environment, sensitive to other people. And something like this would really, really trigger you physiologically.
oh yes, I experienced a lot of different things. And for me, I like education that helps calm my nervous system, my mind, and
Yes.
everything. So I uh, I was reading books. I was so blessed that I had a lot of supportive individuals, but I've been around a lot of people that have lost children, and
Okay.
so many of them reached out to me and provided me resources that were helpful to them. And so
Yeah.
I was reading books and
Yeah.
meeting with friends, and talking through it, and then they were introducing me to grief groups, which for me were helpful.
That's good.
um, Massage therapy,
Oh, wow. That's
it was,
great.
yeah, was really helpful. Has always been helpful
Hmm.
to me for a variety of things. But sound bath, everybody's always like, what the heck, sound bath? Are you floating in a tub? And I'm like, no, but you're floating in sound waves, that have
Yeah.
helped me like, calm myself down, and yoga. So so exercise has been really important
Hmm.
for me to kind of just have a way to release that energy that builds up in me.
Hmm. Hmm.
Uh, so I've kind of had to do a plethora of things to keep
Hmm.
me level set. And I've, for my daughter, I've introduced her to all the things that I'm aware of that can help
Hmm.
people, and told her it depends. What may help me may not help her, and vice
Right.
versa. So I was like, here are the tools, and you
Right.
pick what's helpful to you, because everybody's different. Everybody responds
It's
differently.
so true. I mean, it depends too on your, as you said, on your nature, how you're wired. Are you an introvert or an extrovert? And then the other complication is, of course, you have another child,
Hmm.
and the whole dynamic of the family changes when you
Yes.
lose a child, right?
Yeah, and I know I'd like to get more into siblings. We did have a chance to talk to a gal last week. That episode hasn't released yet, and she lost her little brother, and she was brave and came on for a few minutes, but didn't want to understandably stay on too long because she didn't want to get emotional. But it's losing a sibling, especially at a young age, is so tough. And
Yeah,
then, and as a parent, you're heavily grieving, but you've got to also, try to make sure they're okay. And it's a lot, it's a lot for those
right.
kids too, because to your point, the family dynamic has completely changed.
It really there's a certain balance within a family studying family systems the family has a certain balance. And
Yeah.
Haley and T were so close.
Yes.
And so I can't imagine what that did to the family system, to
Yeah.
them, to Haley.
Yeah.
Um, and there's no way of fully understanding that at this point in time either. As she
Yeah.
gets older, hopefully she'll be able to sort of articulate what that means to her.
Yeah. I talked to her this morning, and,
Uh,
uh, she's, she's doing pretty well. She's like me, where I think she throws herself into her work, but what's worked for her is we found her the right counselor.
mm,
Uh, we initially she started off, with somebody that she didn't connect well with. Nothing
mm,
against the counselor.
that's not
Because
good.
because I had met with her after Haley was like, Mom, I'm just not feeling it. So we went together, and I was like, and she was a lovely individual. Just she wasn't for Haley. So she was
Right.
much older than Haley. So I did
Mhm.
some research and talked to a few people and found somebody I thought would be a good fit. And then we went together, and Haley really liked her and continues to see her.
Oh, good.
So I'm really happy that she's done that. And
Good.
when Haley comes home, she's gone to sound bath with me, and
Oh, good.
she struggled sleeping. And I took a picture of her because her hair was like all over the next morning, but she said she had never slept that. She has not slept that well in a very long
Oh,
time.
good.
And so
Good.
she's been very open to trying different things. And then she and I helped get a young adult grief group started, and I think that in Toledo, and that was
Mhm.
helpful for her too. So it, like I said, I just threw like all the things out at her, and I said, find what works for you. And I'm proud of her that she's been doing that. And she talks about Tristan and in a sisterly way. Oh, he used to do this and drive me crazy, or oh my gosh, so she's
Yes,
kind of keeping up that ornery sibling
that's
rivalry
good,
a little bit.
right?
So I like when she
Yeah.
talks about that. And uh
So
so
he's
she's
still very present in her life.
yes.
Yeah.
So yeah, but it's a work in progress for
Well, there's
forever.
so many different ways you're trying to take care of you. You're trying to
Yeah.
take care of her.
Yeah.
It takes a lot of energy.
It does. And I know from talking to so many of my friends that have lost children. Yeah, I mean, gosh, it's been a blessing, just because I've met people, I think, in almost all of the phases that,
Hmm.
where it's been more recent. And then folks that lost children 30, 40 years ago, and kind of seeing how it still affects them. And but it's been good, and it's been beautiful at the same time to see how everybody's honoring their kids in their own way.
Wow. Yeah. Well, I'm sure you've met a lot of really interesting and wonderful people who've had to
Sure.
walk this journey and just find out how they've gotten through it.
Yes, and it's not even before I lost Tristan, watching that, watching people that I lost my best friend when I was 24, and growing up watching how her parents handled her illness, and then handled, the loss of her,
Wow.
helped me a lot. And I've seen people who have struggled. Well, everybody struggles when they lose a child, but my aunt and uncle, we lost my cousin uh, about 6 years ago, and my aunt and uncle just both passed away within the last year, 5 months apart. And it was grief. It
Oh,
was,
my.
and
Oh.
uh, I had watched that because Brady had passed before Tia, and I was like, oh gosh, if I'm ever put in that situation,
Hmm.
I was like, this is the path I hope that I'm able, to follow. And so it's, I've been watching and learning, but gosh, it's hard. And as you said,
It's hard.
everybody does it different. Everybody's wired differently, different life experiences.
Yeah.
There's not a right or wrong way to grieve. I'm sure there's some healthier ways. There's some things you want to try to avoid with
It is hard work.
grief or depression. And
Yeah,
but it's
it is. It is,
Nancy,
Holly.
let me ask you about that. I guess in Holly and many people are going and dive in and learn a lot of great stuff. That's awesome. But here's my question: what if you just can't do it? What if you're just, I gotta stay in bed and I can never ever walk out of this house again? What do you say to somebody that is not at that point, that cannot just even take that first step? How does someone who's grieving take that first step, to get out of bed? Any advice for something like that?
So somebody who is, like newly bereaved, like they just something, for example, just happened to them, and they just can't do it or can't walk through it. Is that the kind of person you're describing to me?
Yeah, for sure.
Again, my inclination is to not force anything with people. My inclination is to get a sense of a person and to just sit there with that person until they're able to express anything. Now, there are situations, if somebody is so debilitated from grief, where you have to almost get a whole team of people involved to help them. You may get their physician involved. It depends on what else is going on with that person. Maybe that person maybe there's a whole other history with that person too, prior to the loss. So I would be inclined to get a whole history about that person if I didn't know that person. It depends on the situation about how best to help them. Every person isn't the same when something happens to them. So, for example, if a person has had, say, a prior history of a lot of different losses, if a person has had a significant mental health history, say suicide attempts, maybe, or maybe they've just had a history of depression or anxiety and they're not being treated for it, I would want to know as much as I could, not to pathologize somebody, but to make sure that they're getting everything they need to help them to be on balance in order to best help them. You can't approach every person in exactly the same way. You have to get a full picture of what that person is about. And again, I'm not saying, I'm not one who wants to pathologize people, but I am somebody who wants to understand that person's history. So, for example, if I were to go through some major loss right now, and I were to go to somebody to help me, it would be important that that person would understand my history, my loss history. So, as a grief therapist, the first thing I have done with somebody is a loss history graph. I draw a line and have them show me all the different losses that they have on that line, as far back as they can remember. But I also want to know, for example, do they have a history of depression, of anxiety? How have they gone through those losses? Just as I explained to you that I went through the loss of my sister when I was 10 years old. And how was that approached? My dad said to me as he sat under the tree and told me my sister died, "The Lord gives and the Lord takes away." Wow. He meant well, but that affected me emotionally and that affected me spiritually at the time. That's important information. It also created kind of a type of grief over the years for me. Each year in the summertime, I would get depressed, at that time of year, but I didn't know why until much later on in my life. It was a type of, yes, it was depression, but it was also grief. It was a type of frozen grief. So if I'm having somebody talk to me about grief, something's happened to them, maybe it's a new loss. I want to understand, what is their history of maybe depression, losses, anxiety? What are their coping skills? Holly, as you talked about, sort of physiologically, what do they cope with? What's going on with their bodies and their minds? How can I best help them? Do I need other people too to bring in to help them? So that's important.
Nancy, I think that's great advice. It's not a one size fits all. And
No.
like you said, it's so important to get everybody's background because it's so different. And
Right.
it's got, that's their view is on life is going to be completely, based on their life experiences and their past. So I think
Sure.
that's great advice.
Right. And the older we get, I find as I'm getting older, the more of the history I have. And just getting older, it's a natural thing to accumulate losses. For example, just aging, it becomes difficult. Maybe I have more health problems, or just the idea of aging can create stress, anxiety, a lot of different losses associated with that. And also, when people are aging, they tend to do a life review and they tend to accumulate losses, the loss of friends, the loss of family members, maybe the loss of their own children. So that's a different stage in life. But they're also accumulating losses at that point. Maybe they have lost their own children at that point in time. So, unlike you, Holly, where you have lost a child and you're younger, as somebody gets older and you describe your aunt and uncle, that's very possible that they just carried so much grief.
Yeah.
That they died of broken hearts.
They did.
And that's really sad. That's very tragic.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's great advice.
Nancy, you've given us a lot of things, and unfortunately, we could go on for many hours on many different topics.
Yes.
But I do have to ask this while we wind this down. I gotta ask, you've been through your own life, your own losses, your own successes, and kind of all that stuff, but you deal with some heavy stuff. How do you get through it? How do you not just get hit with a ton of bricks?
I try to, one of the things, actually, I know this sounds counterintuitive, but part of what I do is, in addition to trying to be intentional of caring for myself, kind of in body, mind, and spirit, I still continue to do outreach to others. I live in a community of people who are 55 and older. It is independent living. And I just did a workshop for people who wanted to come last weekend for loss and life transitions for people 55 and older who wanted to come. And I had 16 people come. It could be any kind of loss or life transition. And it was pretty powerful. I know you're saying, well, how do you take care of yourself? Well, part of how I take care of myself is I reach out to other people and give them that space where they can talk about what's going on in their lives. And that's very rewarding to me to do that. So I continue to do what I've always done and incorporate art. I incorporate the arts into what I do. And so I incorporated visual art into what I do. And it's very, believe it or not, it's still very rewarding. And I'm going to be doing some support groups. I don't charge for that, in the fall for this community that I live in. I love to go to independent films. I have a theater next door to me, a small theater where they have independent films. I was telling Holly, I went to see a film by Mary Oliver, who's a poet. So I love the arts. And I live in Lancaster City, which is a small city, but it's very thriving. And I can walk to the Central Market. I can be around all kinds of people. And it's a very enriching and enlivening kind of experience for me. And that's where I draw a lot of strength.
All right, that's pretty cool. Well, once again, I appreciate you chatting with us. The thing I'm not pleased about is I was expecting you to give me 2 or 3 things I can do to make things all better, but apparently that's not how it works. But it does certainly make a lot of sense, and the overall theme I'm catching on to when it comes to this is that those who are there for others just have to be there and then be present and give it time. I think if I heard right, it's just takes a little time, and no one's the same.
Yeah. Well, I've really, you have a great spirit. You have a great presence. I can see that about you. I can tell that just by who you are, that you lift people up. And it's really been great meeting you.
Well, we certainly do appreciate you playing along with us. Holly, any other questions you can think of? We've gone on a few minutes here with Nancy, and then give us anything else, Holly, you can think of right now.
Yeah.
Nancy, Nancy, I could talk to you for 12 hours. And this went really, really fast. But if you had one grieving parent that was sitting in your office, what's the one thing you'd want every one of them to leave believing?
Oh. That they're not alone. I worked at Mr. Rogers' caring place for grieving children and families. And at the end of our time together, we would say, I am here for you, you are here for me, and we are here for each other.
I love that.
This has been a presentation of the Through It Podcast. Conversations about surviving, healing, and growing. With your hosts, Holly Rogers and Paul Spurl. Questions or comments about one of the episodes, or if you want to be a sponsor of the Through It Podcast, email us anytime, podcastthrowit@gmail.com. Produced and sponsored in part by the Entertainment Network. EnterTheNetwork.com. Thanks very much for listening and being with us while we get through it.